Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Saturday Sensei. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great, Andy. What a week it was, huh?
No, it's awesome, man. I gotta tell you, these are. I look forward to doing these every week, man. Even the prep, and I had more time this week. It was enjoyable, and I've been looking forward to doing this all day. So it's a nice like oasis from the rest of the stuff we deal with day to day. So
Good. Well, let's start off with how was your trip?
oh, it's good, man. It was good. What a which we'll roll right into the show, man.
Okay.
Into team performances in the good, the midshipmen, Navy over Memphis, man. 652 yards of total offense, 56 points in total, in a pick six to cinch the deal, man. Under the lights, it just electric, unbelievable.
So tell me about the pandemonium.
Oh, it was insane, man. And particularly, the last series, Memphis scores, onside kick, they recover, and you can just feel the despair, right? You can just feel you have to be kidding me because Navy was up by 18 or 19, and all of a sudden Memphis came storming back, and then that pick six, and then the mid storm in the field. I mean, just what a game. And a huge win too. Memphis just came off beating Florida State the weekend before. Now you got the midshipmen. You realize, I got to get this straight. I believe the last time both Army and Navy were undefeated, or I think 4-0, I think it was World War One.
Wow.
Some absurd statistic like that. I heard that last night on some show I had on in the background. But and then the total points from Navy. I haven't done the stats yet. I got to do it. I'll do it maybe for next week's show. But I would venture to guess that the number of points Navy has scored, possibly in the game on Saturday, but probably undoubtedly in the last two games, maybe more points than they scored all of last season.
Yeah, for season to date, sure.
Yeah.
Andy, one thing that jumped out at me was, are we going to start categorizing wins in college football like we do in basketball, like a quad one
Oh,
win?
yeah. Good point.
I
Good
mean,
point.
Navy had a win where Memphis was a leading candidate to get into that playoff with NIU, and here's Navy with an upset of the ages.
Yeah, now Navy could be in that catbird seat for snagging that top five power or the at large bid for the top 12. Speaking of upset wins, how about the Minutemen? UMass knocking off Central Connecticut State to get their first win of the season and on the board. I had no inkling that was going to happen.
No, I think we both picked Central Connecticut.
We did. We did. we
So,
both did.
what do we know?
Yeah, that's right. What'd you have for highlights last week? The good team performances for week 4.
Andy, last week was so great for me. Tennessee going into Norman
Man.
and beating the Sooners is just a coming of age for this guy, this freshman quarterback. What's his name? Nico.
Yep.
Nico, right?
Imalaya. Yep.
Right. I mean, he had a coming out party. Colorado with a thriller in overtime, wing and
Did
a
you see
prayer.
that? Have you seen the highlights? Have you seen the highlights on that Hail Mary?
I did.
I don't know. Have you seen the angle from the end zone?
No.
Like there is a free safety literally from Colorado State. It was Colorado State, right?
It was Colorado State, Colorado.
That was parked in the end zone,
Right.
And the ball is thrown 50 yards, 60 yards by Sanders, and it's underthrown. And you can see the ball at about the 30-yard line in the air. And the safety reacts. And there's man-to-man on the receiver who's going deep. And the safety, I don't know how he ever even had a chance at the ball, and let alone he caught it. It's unbelievable.
So behind the scenes, they talk about drawing up the play on how they're going to use what's his name as a decoy, because everyone's going to be
Yeah. Hunter, Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter is a decoy, and how this guy's a small guy. He's not a big guy that everyone thinks they're going to throw a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And he said, I asked God and I threw a prayer.
Nice.
And then I think that the other game for me was a turn back the clock game. I'm sure you're not going to be happy, and we both didn't pick it. But Michigan stops SC in a fourth down with inches, an inch. It could have been an inch.
Yeah.
And they win
Good
the game.
game.
Yeah,
really,
great game.
Really good game. Yeah, it was, I watched, I was able to see some of the first half, and SC had nothing on offense, and Michigan was just, and the thing, you're as a fan and somebody who's not in it, it seems obvious, but Orji, the quarterback for Michigan, his passing game is clearly underdeveloped, and he's 6 foot something, 230 pounds, and can run the ball with force. Plus, Michigan has the running attack. I don't know how you don't overextend and over prepare to stop them on the run and make the guy throw the ball. And they just couldn't stop them in the first half. Luckily, they made halftime adjustments, but it came back to bite them. That 83, I think it was an 80-yard run by Khalil Mullings, right? Who, by the way, was a former linebacker. But that sealed the deal for Michigan. Once he had that long run, I thought, at home, they're not going to give this away. So good game. I'm glad it was competitive, but great game. How about who didn't look so up to snuff? Who'd you have on the kind of bad performances?
The naughty list. The naughty list. I'm not sure if they were naughty because we didn't pick them, or they just didn't perform, right? And on the top of my list is Kansas State losing to BYU. 9 points with the quarterback of the century.
I know, man.
Right?
K-State, man. I jumped on the Wildcat bandwagon after you threw that stat out, and you were so gung-ho on the QB, and they pulled out, they leapt from the jaws of defeat against Tulane down in the Big Easy, and I thought for sure they were gonna roll, but I had an inkling that it might be a bit of an upset, but boy, a thrashing by BYU. They hit the mercy rule maybe, so that was pretty ugly. I had OSU losing to Utah at home, right? I Rising did not start once again, right? So Isaac Wilson started, and this was the stat that jumped off the page for me. Have a guess. So 60 minutes, right? 4 15-minute quarters. Have a guess at OSU's time of possession for that game.
22 minutes.
17. Wow. Utah had the ball for 43 minutes. 43 minutes. OSU Sooners. Yeah, Okie State threw 2 INTs. I mean, when you only have the ball for 17 minutes, man, that's tough, right? Plus turnovers, tough game to win. So that's who I had on kind of the naughty to bad list.
That was my second one. That was my second stinker, which was Okie State losing to Utah, and then the third stinker was Georgia. Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech laying an egg against Louisville.
Hey, I think what I took away from that game and watching some of the highlights, I think Louisville is. I think they're a bit of a sleeper. They've got Notre Dame this week. Yeah, but I think they're going to give Notre Dame everything they can handle and then some. But we'll get to that later in the show. How about the ugly? Who had the ugly performance for
this game? Was so ugly, I couldn't watch it. It was painful to watch. It was NC State's performance against Clemson. Obviously Clemson was up and down the field, but NC State couldn't do anything. I would love to see the stats, Professor, on that game. It was that futile on the NC State side. I turned it off. I couldn't watch it. That's how ugly that game was.
Really? Yeah, I didn't catch that.
It's not even the fugly, Andy. It's not even the fugly.
Just the ugly, huh?
Just the ugly. So what about you? What caught your eye?
I don't know if you caught any of this game, and it wasn't so much the quality of the game, but just another questionable performance. But A&M almost losing at home to the Fighting Falcons from Bowling Green.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, yeah. I watched that game. That was a late game. It was on a bit later on Saturday evening, and I thought Bowling Green kept it a game up riding up until the end of the game overall. But it was back and forth. But A&M, like, just again, I know you and a lot of other folks were hot on A&M and their talent and the coaching change, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of the classic of the last several years. A&M, they just are overhyped and don't seem to be able to deliver.
So, Andy, those games were ugly, but which one was fugly? Right? And to me, I went from bad to worse, Andy. And as I changed,
We probably have the same one. We'll see. I think we had the same one last
it's
week.
got to be. It's got to be, because as I changed the channel, I'm thinking to myself, one game is worse than the next. And as I'm watching this, Mac Brown is having a heart attack on the sidelines. I look down at the score. He's given up 70 points
I
to
know.
James Madison.
I know. Yep. That's who got mine as well too, man. I think James Madison had scored 50 by halftime. But 70, they ended up losing. They ended up giving up 70. And the telltale, although it didn't translate into 70 points. But for me, the key stat, UNC lost 3 of 3 fumbles, and they all resulted in scoring opportunities, and James Madison converted on all 3 of those. And when you do that, I don't care who you're playing, tough to beat.
Yeah.
Tough to beat. So that's the Fugly. The Tar
Yeah.
Heels. The Tar Heels win the Fugly Award, the big Fugly Award. We got to get some graphic or something for that. We may have to make some T-shirts for the big Fugly.
I love it. That would be great, Andy.
Then we'll have to print them up with the logo somehow. So, of all of our half dozen listeners, if any of you got talent or know somebody that can print T-shirts quick and cheap, let us know. Again, Saturday Sensei, we're heading into week 5 here. We are in week 5 for games. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all your go-to podcast channels. So tune in, listen, pass it along, subscribe, etc. Trying to make this big time. Individual performances for the week. Who'd you have on the offensive side of the ball?
I had 2 quarterbacks, Andy.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right, one of them started his first game in college, right, and he's royalty. Manning. The yards just jump out at the page. 576 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I know it was against a lower opponent, but you got to give the kid credit, man.
Yeah.
He didn't start off well. He was a little shaky, and he kept his poise, and he ended well.
Yeah, very good performance. Who was your other QB?
The other QB goes back to what you were saying about the the Air Force and the Army and the Navy and what's going on. Bryson Daly of Army. I watched the game against the Owls, and this was not Temple. This was Rice.
Yeah.
And he accounted for 5 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 2 passing. He had 145 yards running and 107 yards passing. This kid looks like the real deal.
Yeah, well, we're shaping up for a heck of a game if both of those squads, Army and Navy, keep up the streak come the end of the year. But nice. I had 2 on the offensive side. I had a running back and a QB. Khalil Mullings, from give credit where credit's due. Hats off to my sister and brother-in-law, but primarily their kids, George and Max. Although George is the big U of M fan, Max tends to lean for the Spartans, but they're Ann Arbor residents. But Khalil Mullings, running back for for Michigan, had 160 yards on the ground, 2 tutties, and that big long run at the end to really push him over the edge was impressive. And again, this kid is a former linebacker, right? So he hasn't come up through the stalls of kind of the running back halls here over his career. And then I had the quarterback from the other service academy who's earned the nickname, which see if he can hold it up here at in Annapolis, but is Heisman Horvath.
Wow.
Blake Horvath, 9 for 12, 192 yards, 2 tutties in the air, 211 on the ground, 4 touchdowns, 6 total touchdowns. Unbelievable, man.
Wow.
So his currently year to date, I believe, these won't be exact, but I think he is in the air. I think he's got just over 400 yards through 3 games. On the ground, he's just shy of 400, and he's accounted for 12 touchdowns in the first 3 games. Pretty good.
So he may be on your dark horse list for the Heisman, no?
Hey, he could be. He could be. All right. Any defensive standouts?
Defense, Andy. I think the U of M defense all season has played great. They let up 15 points over South Florida. They won 50-15. BYU held Kansas State to 9 points. And my boys, Penn State, pitched a shutout against Kent State. So to me, those were the big defensive performances of the week. And you?
I have to go with the Vols, man. Tennessee's, and I hadn't seen. I think this is the first game I've seen them play on Saturday night. I've seen the highlights and obviously heard the hype around Nico, and listened to some of the other podcasts. Just general belief in they're kind of bringing both sides of the ball, or all 3 phases of the game, but really both offense and defense. And I was texting my my brother, cousin, and my sister in a group chat Saturday night, and that game on both sides of the ball. But I mean, guys were just flying to the ball, man, and just knocking the crap out of the Sooners and vice versa. I mean, a couple of those hits that were on highlight reels. I mean, it was just a physical, fast game on the defensive side of the ball, and clearly they've got weapons on the offensive side. So I still think to continue that pace and success is a lot for a true freshman to hold up. We'll see if Nico can do that. I think at some point, Bama or another, significant powerhouse forces some mistakes, and they end up losing a game or 2. But that defense, wow, they were impressive. Big, fast, and mean. So if that can hold up, then Tennessee's got a lot of runway ahead of them. So, all right, hot topics of the week. We've got 3 on the board this week. We're going to start off a little discussion around some NIL rule changes. Talk about Heisman Trophy updates, kind of our view, and then talk a little bit about the evolution of the offense in college football. But let's kick it off with NIL. And Mark, you want to bring us up to speed with some of the developments there?
I know, Andy, that you have a difference of opinion when it comes to this.
Yeah.
I'm just old
I
school,
love it.
right? And now what we're seeing is how creative can you be? Tennessee has gotten cleared where they're putting an increase in the ticket price and calling it a 10% talent fee.
The war on talent, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's ingenious. They're helping the 104,000 people that are on Rocky Top go ahead and pay for the team that they want to see. But it begs the question, Andy, are there going to be PSLs at some point? And they're going to start operating for personal seat licenses?
Yeah. I don't know. I think this whole development and evolution is driving innovation. So I think it's great, that schools are trying things. I think ultimately I said it, I think a couple weeks before, at some point, the NCAA is going to either have to figure something out, and get off their duffs and get out of their own way and figure out a way to do this that creates a level of competitiveness, but not a huge gap. Going back to, you'll know better than I, but call it what, the 80s and 90s with the Steinbrenners and the Yanks pretty much having an endless bankroll and really stacking the deck against everybody else. But I think, they're going to they'll have to figure it out. But I love the fact that schools are trying some different things. And, at the end of the day, if I'm a fan paying for season tickets or a single game ticket, if I'm a fan, right, of the game, I'm going to see a competitive game, and I want to see big plays on both sides of the ball, and that comes down to athletes in the talent. So I know you're old school. I have, my heart is still, I've got a little piece of it still there, but the more and more I see of what's happening, I don't particularly mind it. But what's interesting, and a comment I think that you brought up in our exchange on this is what's going to be the influence and the impact of alumni. And if we think about wealth, this may be another stack that we have to pull together. But if we look at the nation's wealthiest alumni and endowments, my guess is you got to go out to the East Coast and in the Ivy League. So do we see a sea change in the competitiveness of schools with very wealthy alumna and those that have a passion and a desire to see their football teams become more competitive? Who knows?
Andy, I can tell you that's what's driving St. John's basketball. They have a billionaire business guy that loves the basketball team. He is bankrolling Patino. And I can see this happening, to your point, and changing the landscape with the Harvards and the Yales and the Ivy League schools now will all of a sudden change the dynamic of college football. It also begs the question, do we put in a salary cap so that we don't have this? And then do we instill something like revenue sharing so the smaller schools of that conference aren't blown out of the
Mhm.
water, right?
Yeah. 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 I think we'll see it evolve. I mean, this is, very typical of early stage innovation, right? And there's just a flurry of activity, and whether it's a product or a service. And then at some point, the market and consumers converge around what typically becomes the standard. And I think we'll see something similar here. I think in a couple of years, we'll see a bit of a standard set and a proven path for schools to generate additional revenue and investment for talent, and do it in a way that really it doesn't stack the deck against smaller programs and smaller schools, right? That just won't have the resources. So
I
we'll
think you
see
see,
see how
yeah,
it plays out.
Andy, I think you see two things. I think you see the schools now developing a front office
Hmm.
with multiple positions. And I
Yep.
think you see the NCAA take a step back, and a gentleman that is operations focused from the business background becomes the the what's it called, the commissioner of
Mm.
college football.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very possible. Very possible. But we'll see. Exciting nonetheless. Heisman Trophy update. Heisman Trophy candidates and status and race in your mind. We're heading into week 5. We've got, depending on the teams and bye weeks, but 3 or 4 games under the belt. Who are your favorites right now?
So what are we? We're a quarter of a way through. There's
Yeah,
going to be
roughly a
12,
quarter to a third.
third. Okay. Um, when I look at it, I mean, you got to look at Cam Ward and what he's doing in Miami.
Yeah,
Look at what,
impressive.
right, Andy. What? Look at the numbers that he's putting up and how his team is performing. Right,
Yeah, yeah, they're just dominating.
right. And then
Kings of the old.
another gentleman that you called for your pick of the season is Milrow.
Yeah.
And depending upon where Alabama finishes and the year he's having, that could be impactful as well. But to me, the clear leader, and you've always used the term athletes, athletes, athletes.
Right.
Best athlete in college football is Travis Hunter.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I don't have him on my list.
No.
No, I don't. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I think, and I again the vote to the Heisman, right, is a top player in college football. Now I suspect there is a fair amount of room for interpretation, but as I look at it, a couple things that jump out to me. One, clearly the individual performance has to be outstanding, and no questions as to the exceptionality of the performance. Two, does that individual have an impact overall on the team, and do they lift the team? And third, the team's got to be a winning team and a contender. You can't have. I don't think you can have a Heisman from a 500 team, right? So that's my main reason for not having Hunter on the list. Is I just don't think Colorado. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, and they'll finish, I think, slightly better than last year. But I just think Milroe. I've got Nico. I put Nico Iamaleava on my list after watching him.
Mm-hmm.
Ashton Genty, running back from Boise State, like I said, he was on pace to break some of Sanders' old records. And again, this is one where Boise State's going to have some exceptional wins and be in the playoff talk. And then my last one here is the same as your first one, in Cam Ward, right? And the interesting thing is this, and I think we're seeing it a little bit, or at least the supposition is the same thing we're seeing in the NFL with a couple quarterbacks that have moved from one program, one scheme, coaches to another. Where last season, Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, a couple years ago, last year, performances really not all that good, right? And Darnold not even playing really. Now to being put in a situation where they've got good coaches, teammates, and a system around them that allow them to succeed, I think this is exactly what's happened to Cam Ward. I mean, he was incredibly talented and had Washington State. If it weren't for Washington and the Ducks out there, Wazoo could have been in contention for the Pac-12 last year. He was just as good last year. He just played in the upper Northwest. Nobody ever saw him play, and he played in a program that wasn't all that dynamic. Now you put him down in South Florida under Mario, and lights out, man. Like, it's back to the Canes of the 1980s and 1990s. Impressive stuff. So.
Andy,
What about dark horses? What about
yeah,
dark horse? Give me a
that's
dark
what I was
horse.
going to say. Give you a dark horse. I'll give you a dark horse. Jackson Dart.
Whoa, Ole Miss.
If Ole Miss
Former
continue,
Trojan quarterback.
oh, I didn't know that.
Following,
He transferred from USC.
He was at SC, and I think he followed Kiffin down there. Didn't follow him, but Kiffin pulled him away, I believe.
Yeah. So if they continue to have the season that they're having, he continues to put up the stats, he might find himself on his way to New York.
Yeah, there we go. Well, my dark horse I mentioned earlier, but Heisman Horvath. Go Navy, beat Army. 412 yards passing, 366 on the ground, 12 tutties. Got to be in the combo as long as they keep winning. So that's my dark horse. And shout out to all my mids out there listening, all 5 of you. You need to spread the word. We got to get better fanfare. And oh, by the way, we'll special NIL money for any mid that's listening that gets Horvath 30 seconds on the show with the Senseis. Be pretty awesome. All right, evolution of offense in college football. This is something I was kind of reflecting on Saturday night while watching the games and thinking about the show this week. And really watching that game, the SC Michigan game. But, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I think roughly 60 to 70% of the plays that were run were probably inside the tackles. Right. And now it's almost the inverse. We've seen the evolution of, we've gone away from the I formation, the wing tee, the option, and on to the West Coast jet sweep, run and gun type of offense. And it's really interesting if, we reflect on our days of college football was for me, again, the 80s and 90s. And you had a few high flyers, but by and large, man, it was a lot of, Big Ten is categorized as smash mouth football still today, but a lot of programs still ran similar offenses back then. And the games on the offensive side has changed quite a bit. And I don't know how you feel about it. I miss the option. I'm loving the wing tee out of Navy. I think it's suiting them well, and it is proving successful and exciting. But not sure what your thoughts are on this, Mark. Or
Andy, you talk about nostalgia and you talk about the uniqueness of college football, and it's gotten homogenized. And you're seeing it in the NFL where the players are coming in ready to play. And that's because they're running these run and shoot pro style offenses. And you're seeing it in the amount of points being scored in the college season. And you're seeing it in the athletes being ready to go ahead and take the reins of a pro team a lot earlier than what they used to be able to do. So I think it's just a matter of the systems are feeding each other, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't like it. I'm old school, and I like the uniqueness of the different teams and the elements that go with it. So to me, not so great, but I do see it, and you're right. It's a more spread offense, and it's a run and shoot, right?
Yeah. All right, pop quiz time, my friend.
Okay.
Couple stats for you. Last season, 2023, who was the top team for pass attempts, average pass attempts a game, and how many per game?
Oh my God. 2023, top 10. I'm going to have to go with LSU, Jaden Daniels, 32 attempts a game.
No, they were up there. Georgia Southern, 45 a game.
45. Okay.
45. Guess who were the bottom three?
Navy, Army, and Air Force.
Wow, in that order. Navy, 131st, 16 and a half. Army, 132nd, 14.3. Last place, Air Force, 133rd with 8.5 attempts a game in 23. So bottom of the barrel. How about on the flip side of the ball? How about for rush attempts? Who led? How many average attempts?
With Jim Harbaugh, smash mouth, I gotta go with Michigan.
Actually, no. It was the Black Knights from Army. 58 attempts a game. Yep, an average of 58. UCF second at 55 and a half. Air Force third at 51, and Navy fourth at 50.
Well, I guess that would make sense because it's the antithesis of what they were doing.
Got to have some offense, right? They're running and throwing.
They're not throwing; they're running.
Yeah, that's right. And fewest attempts. Who had the fewest rushing attempts?
The fewest rushing attempts has got
average rushing attempts a game.
It's got to be the team that's thrown the ball the most.
No.
Louisiana
Tech, 19 a game.
And
Ball State at 20. And last year, I think, as we commented on text, didn't make it to the podcast last year, Colorado. And they had zero running game last year, if you recall, and only averaged about 20 and a half attempts per game. So interesting dynamics. But those are some stats on how how backing up the change in the game and how various teams choose their weapons on offense. So, all right, that wraps up hot topics for the week. Now we're getting into our highlight feature of every week, the picks. So we're going to take a short break here. We'll be right back. We'll do a recap of week 4, and then we're going to pick them for you in week 5. Hold on, folks. Welcome back, Saturday Sensei, into week 5 already. Hard to believe. We're nearing the halfway point of the 2024 college football season. Saturday Sensei, you can catch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, etc. Like and subscribe. Pass it on to your friends, loved ones, those who simply love the game. All right. Last week, I think we said it. Again, you can check the minutes. You can check the pod. Go listen. But I do believe after we talked about the season record and last week's record, I did say I am a stats junkie and a bit of a a math nerd and a very big believer in mean reversion. And this week reverted us to the mean, Mark. Not a great performance for either of us. Week 4, the Sensei, I went 9-7. Senpai, the student, went 7-9. The BYU K-State game tipped you over the balance there and moved you away from a 500 record. And on the season, I stand at 45-17. Mark, you're at 40-22.
Andy, it was a bloodbath, Andy.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But hey, all good things must come to an end. We had 3 good weeks in a row, and a bit of humility. It's always good for folks. Reminds us why we're doing this for free. We're not getting paid. So, all right, let's pick them. Let's start off. First game for this coming Saturday, Virginia Tech taking on the Canes down in Coral Gables. Who you got?
I love the Canes, my friend.
Yeah, Miami all the way, I think.
Yeah.
Although I still think Miami's got that proverbial step on a rate game, I think, as Reese Davis calls it on his Game Day podcast. But USF might have been that game early on, but they pulled away. I think Miami, like you said, too much talent. So Canes in a walk away. Next one, West Coast game. Going back to the old kind of Pac-12 matchup, but we got this time it's a Big Ten matchup. Oregon taking on the Bruins down in L.A.
I think the Ducks have righted the ship, and I think they're poised to make a run the second half of the season. I like the Ducks.
Yeah, go Ducks. I think they win down in La La Land. Next one up, interesting game. 2 new SEC opponents. Really, I guess one old in Arkansas and the new entrant in A&M. But Razorbacks heading into College Station. What do you think?
Andy, this is a tough one. Arkansas has been playing good ball, and Texas has not. Texas A&M is home. If this is a disaster of a season if they lose this game. I've lost all faith in what they've done. I'm gonna pick the Razorbacks here.
Wow. Okay, you're going with the Razorbacks on the road for the victory. I'm going A&M. I think the Aggies are going to get it done at home. I do believe it's going to be a close game, but I think Texas A&M wins at home. So see how that plays out. Next game, we've got 2 teams that are on the rebound from losses this past weekend. Oklahoma State losing a close one to Utah at home, and then Kansas State getting its rear end handed to them out in Provo, I believe, is where BYU is. But who you got between Oak State and Kansas State?
I still have a belief in this quarterback, Andy. And
You're hanging on.
I'm hanging on to him. And I think he's going to respond, and Kansas State is going to beat Okie State at home. I got the Wildcats.
Okay, you're going Wildcats. I'm going Cowboys. I'm going Oklahoma State. I think Gundy's going to get the boys righted. Again, they lost by 3 points. They held the ball for 17 minutes. They should have won that game. I think they'll get it done against Kansas State. Oklahoma State is a winner in my book. Minnesota at Michigan, Big Ten matchup.
The way that Michigan played in the Big House against SC, they've turned back the clock. I think this is what they needed to jumpstart their season, and I got the Wolverines.
Yeah, I'm taking Michigan too at the Big House. They're winners over the Golden Gophers. Next game up, another Big Ten matchup, new one, much like last week. Trojans taking on Wisconsin, this time at the Coliseum. What do you see here, Mark?
I think Whiskey's outmanned. I think SC played a hell of a game last week in their first Big Ten matchup on the road in the Big House. They could have easily won that game, and I think they respond. They're at home this week, and I look for them to have a big game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Trojans win this one. I'm with you. I'm not sure Fickle, they figure things out in Wisconsin, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And I think SC, let's hope the second half against Michigan carries over into the game. But I think USC is going to be too much too much for them. So Trojans at home, fight on. All right, next one. Interesting pick of the week. Wagner taking on the Owls from Florida Atlantic. And those of you that are hardcore March Madness fans, remember the run that Florida Atlantic made. Was that last year or 2 years ago, Mark?
It was 2 years ago. They
Yeah,
made it
Final
to
Four.
Final Four.
Amazing. Yeah, that's right.
But Wagner
Right.
made the tournament last year. They won
Yes.
NEC.
Yep, they're a regular typically, oftentimes in the big dance. But who you got on the
Now,
pitch? Who do you got here?
Wagner is in Grimes Hill, Staten Island. And I am a Staten Island resident, Andy.
Well, we know who you're going for then.
Right. And I've seen many a game on Grimes Hill for those Seahawks. So I am going to go with my heart in this one. And I like to see Wagner pull it out and beat them on the road.
Yeah, I'm going Wagner too. They've got a pretty impressive so far quarterback. I'm just trying to look that up real quick, but I was flipping through. I didn't know a whole lot about either of these teams, particularly FAU. Wasn't real sure they had a program, a football program. No offense, but the prowess and the popularity of, as we mentioned, the run of the basketball team kind of takes your mind there immediately. But as I was glancing through the matchup here, and I'm trying to find quick stats here, but the QB I think he's got 7 or 8 TD passes on the season so far, and the offense looked fairly solid. So I'm going Wagner. I'm with you. I'll be a Staten Island temporary resident for the weekend. Next up, Mississippi State heading into Austin to take on Texas. Believe viewers will be back, but if not, they will be under the trusted leadership after last week of Arch Manning. Who you got here?
I think Texas is just too much for them. They're at home. Mississippi State looked well the last week. They were a winner, but they're just going to be outmanned. They're going to be outgunned. Texas has got too many athletes, and Texas, go Horns. Hook 'em Horns.
Yeah, I'm with you. Texas wins. Fighting Illini, ILLINI. Shout out to my sister-in-law and my cousin's wife, Sean and Rachel. Fighting Illini alums, taking on the Nittany Lions in Happy Valley. This is going to be an interesting matchup, Mark. I think, the Illini went down to Lincoln, took on the Huskers, beat them. They beat at the time, what was considered fairly competitive Kansas team. I think in week 2, that game was at home. And the Fighting Illini are 4-0 under Brett. Was it Belima? I think his name is.
Yeah, from Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the first time they've been 4-0 or undefeated in quite some time. I believe the stat that I was looking at, but I don't know, Mark. I think this game's going to be close, and it's going to be my upset of the week. I'm going to take the Illini on the road, taking down the Nittany Lions.
I think this game is close, Andy. It may even go into overtime, but they don't beat Penn State at home in College Park. I got Penn State.
Yeah. Okay.
State College. Sorry, State College. College Park is Maryland. State College.
Yep. All right. We'll see. Should be a game. Next game I'm really looking forward to after seeing the performance last week. But Louisville heading into South Bend. Notre Dame took care of business against the Red Hawks last week, 28-3. My younger son got to see that massacre. At least it was a beautiful day, and I'm sure he had a few adult beverages with his buddies. So no time lost. But Louisville, still under the command of Bobby Petrino, I believe, is still the lead, the head coach down there. And Cardinal heading in to take on the Irish. I'm going Louisville in this one. I think Louisville's got, from what I saw on highlights and some of the game, I think they are for real. I believe they beat Notre Dame last year down in Louisville, and I think they get the Irish again. Go Cardinal.
Andy, it's going to be the luck of the Irish, Andy. As much as I don't like Notre Dame, Louisville's luck is run out, and Notre Dame is going to win at home.
Okay, got the Irish. We'll see. We got a A lot of opposing matchups and winners. So we see how we fare at the end of the week. All right, next one up, Huskies from Northern Illinois, who took down the Irish a few weeks ago, taking on NC State and the Wolfpack. Who do you like here?
Andy, based upon what I saw last week, I'm going with the Huskies.
Wow, really?
NC State was a disaster.
Yeah, I don't know that. It was 59-35, so they put up 35 points. I checked the stats.
Yeah,
It wasn't abysmal. Over 200 yards passing, 100 plus easily on the ground. I'm going NC State. I'm going Wolfpack. I think there's going to be too many athletes, and I think NIU had a big win against Notre Dame, but I think they shot their wad in that game, and I think the Wolfpack get them. So I think the Cinderella story for the Huskies is over.
wow.
Sorry, DeKalb, but
an Illinois boy, and he's pulling his own team down.
Yeah, I know, but sometimes you got to operate in reality, Mark. That's all. All right, next up, West Coast game. I like this matchup too. Arizona, the Wildcats taking on the Utes. I'm not sure again if we'll see Rising or Isaac Wilson under the center for the Utes, but what do you think in this game, Mark?
I like Utah, Andy. Utah at home, they're going to outclass them.
Yeah, I think Whittingham is going to have his crew ready. I got a bit of a head fake. I took the Wildcats over the Wildcats, I think, in our week two show when I thought the QB wide receiver tandem there for Arizona was going to take down KSU, and I was proven sorely wrong in that. So I'm going Utes. I think, again, both sides of the ball are going to be tougher. Utes win at home. Next one, big matchup here, Colorado at University of Central Florida. Who do you like here, Mark?
I think Colorado's prayers will not be answered this week.
Like it.
I like UCF.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. I'm going with UCF too. I think at home, UCF actually, again looking at their record and their performance and stats over the weekend, have fared fairly well, and I think they're going to be just a bit too much for Neon Dion. I wonder if Neon Dion's going to take a bit of a swing to the east and swing by Tallahassee and put his name in for the job, or is he going to swing over to Gainesville and drop a note if and when head coaching changes happen at either of those schools? But we'll see. But yeah, UCF over the Buffs.
Yep.
All right, next one, interesting. Again, Big Ten matchup, and we got the Terps from Maryland heading into Bloomington to take on the undefeated 4-0 Indiana Hoosiers, who have put up football scores equivalent to their performance on the hard court. I don't know what has happened in Bloomington, but wow, looking impressive so far. Who do you got here, Mark?
I think the ride continues for Indiana. The Hoosier State pulls this one out at home.
That's right. I'm going Hoosiers too. I think Indiana wins this one, beats Maryland, so they keep the streak alive. All right, second to last one before we get to the big game, the T-shirt pick of the week. We got Wazoo taking on Boise State at Boise State. What do you think, Mark?
This is a tough one. They're both playing very well. Boise State is at home. The talent, and the athletes, and the offense, and the coaching, I just think Wazoo beats him.
Okay. I'm going Boise State. Ashton Jeanty in that run game are just too much for Washington State. I think, again, they had their day in the sun when they won the Apple Cup and beat Washington last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and I think that streak ends. Boise State at home. So, all right, folks. Saturday Sensei, week 5, wrapping up here before we get to our big game. Again, YouTube, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, etc. Tune in, subscribe, like what all you social media moguls and fans do, whatever you do, push us to the top. But we appreciate you joining us and share your love for the game. All right, last game on the docket, big one. Gotta love it this early in the season. Georgia heading into Bama, Tuscaloosa, big heavyweight fight. I believe, again, the stat I saw today, I think Kirby Smart His record against Bama, I believe, is 1-5. Now we have to asterisk that because all 6 of those games he played against his mentor and the GOAT, Saban. He is now facing a different head coach in Kalen DeBear. But I think Kirby and the boys pull it out, Mark. I got the dogs heading into Tuscaloosa and heading back to Athens with a victory. What you say?
I say not so fast, my friend. Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide.
Oh, get out of here, man. Get out of here. Going Bama. Going Bama at home. Going to take Kirby's streak to 1-6.
You got it, my friend.
Wow. Well, we'll see. That certainly will boost the chances of Milroe and his run at the Heisman if they win this game. But I think Georgia's got too much. They've already had their close one against Kentucky last weekend. I think they're juiced and ready to go. But
we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, that does it, folks. That wraps week 5. Another successful, enjoyable week for the tandem of Saturday Sensei. Again, we really appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate all your comments and your likes and following us on social media. Again, we're at Instagram, X, and look forward to continue having you tune in, and we'll see what week 5 brings. But I suspect it's going to bring more excitement and surprises like we've seen in the prior 4. So thanks again, folks. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you on the other side.